Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Deva Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Deva Vanachari Yamuna Deva Jaya Raja Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Deva Vanachari Yamuna Deva Vanachari Yamuna Deva Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gauriva, Hariva, Hariva, Nitai Gaura Hariva. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai, Nitai Gopramanande. Hare Krishna. All right, so before we get into the first lesson, just some logistics. If anybody wants to use the bathroom, if you go into the passage again, on your right-hand side is the bathroom. And there's a register that's going around. Everyone's saying, just mark yourself present, especially those that are going to do the course as a formal Bhakti Shastri certification. And we did email everyone a study guide. Those of you that requested the printout, we have some copies over here. You can grab a copy. And how many of you seated here are going to do it as an official Bhakti Shastri certification? So some of them are just year to year, which is good. Some of them obviously want to do it as a formal certification. So in the study guide, you'll see on page 6, I think. Nope. So on page 8, you'll find the unit assessment. That's basically the criteria that we're going to use. There's an open book assessment. And open book means the textbook is there for you to research. There's different questions. Then there's a closed book assessment, 20%. Then there's memorization of specific verses. Attendance generally, depending where the certification is done, either a sadhana sheet attendance or attendance at a temple. And then there's class participation. So basically, that's what we're going to try to follow in terms of the study guide, just so that we can comply with the requirements. We're going to try to cover the course as per the Bhakti Shastri. Now, we have a suggestion of, let's say, doing the classes weekly, or one suggestion was we have, for example, now we're going to cover the Preface, and Prabhupada said, the Nectar devotion is a very important book. All the books, in fact, for Bhakti Shastri, Srila Prabhupada even said Bhakti Shastri for small books. So even for the small books, we meant to have a exam, like Chant and Be Happy, or the small books that Prabhupada wrote, and you have to have an exam on that. So the idea was we have, let's say, the first lesson today, and then next week, you'll have 1 week to, let's say, refresh, memorize the points. And then we were thinking of having next week as a quiz session. And the quiz going to be, let's say, that's a suggestion, so we can discuss it. How many of you know about Kahoots? Kahoots? Don't know Kahoots? So Kahoots is it's a online platform for quizzes where everybody gets quizzed at the same time, right? So you bring your apps or you bring your cell phones, and then we show the questions, and everybody has the opportunity to answer together simultaneously. and there's a time clock. So that way you obviously have to know the answer to be able to, and then we can see who memorized nicely. So that's the one exercise, and that's multiple choice. Then we'll, in every section, in Prabhupada, in many of his purports, he puts some very profound statements, which is very nourishing and beneficial to memorize. So, for example, in an introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada asks the question, what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? And Prabhupada answers in one line. Who can remember? So that's like, so instead of remembering the whole introduction, if we just remember this one sutra, very profound. Because somebody can ask you, right? Hey, what's this Bhagavad Gita? What's the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? Now, instead of going into a thesis, you just answer it in this one sentence. Prabhupada said the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the nations of material existence. It encapsulates everything. So it's called a sutra. And in there, Prabhupada's realizations, everything is in that sutra. So like that, even in Nectar Devotion, in the preface, you'll see, we cover some very profound statements Prabhupada makes. So next week, we want to, let's say, try to drill these different statements so that we memorize them or we remember them. Okay? And then also have specific discussions on some of the points. So that was the idea, to have, let's say, 1 week class, and the next week, recap points, try to embed, try to memorize the points, and have any discussions related to the topic, and then have the quiz. So who thinks the quiz is a good idea? Okay, so majority wins. All right. So next week Easter. Yeah, so we'll communicate in terms of, if there's a holiday, that's why everyone should be on the WhatsApp group, so that we'll communicate, okay, no classes this week, or if they have a function here, we'll postpone the classes. Okay? But otherwise, if there's nothing scheduled, then we'll generally have the class. If you miss any of the lessons, you can catch it online. We stream it online, and generally it gets uploaded instantly or after some time, and we generally edit if there is certain sections that or certain areas beginning and end we have to edit, then we just edit. But otherwise, the same link you'll see that we post, and there'll be a playlist channel on YouTube where you can get all the lessons if you miss. The idea is not so much for Bhakti Shastri, but the idea is more to systematically go to Prabhupada's books and to associate with Srila Prabhupada through his books. And that's more the idea of the sessions that we do. Okay, so any questions anyone has before we commence? All right, so we will start.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, welcome to this first class on the preface of Nectar of Devotion. For you, those of you that are online, we miss your physical presence. So this is the verse that we will chant at the beginning of every class, that is one shlok from the Sat Goswami Astakam. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro. Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Ye Rupa Sanatana Rago Yago Shri Jiva Gopala Go. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. I offer my respectful obeisances to the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada, he gave us a summary of a book that was composed by Srila Rupa Goswami. So, Srila Rupa Goswami is a very special personality who we will hear about a lot more just now. But just the title of this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti means devotion. Rasa, that you'll hear just now, Prabhupada will explain, there's no English word that's equivalent to the word rasa. So the nearest that English meaning or definition is mellow. Then Amrita, eternal nectar, and Sindhu is an ocean. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he composed this book, which is an entire ocean, right, of devotion, of rasa, and of nectar. And Srila Prabhupada appropriately called it the nectar of devotion, or the complete science of devotion, in other words. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So the word Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is actually a Sanskrit word. We have a short translation known as the nectar of devotion. So Srila Rupa Goswami's purpose to present the ocean of Bhakti Rasa. Rasa means mellow, the juice. It is like an ocean. This ocean has limitation, but that is unlimited. Prabhupada explained in a lecture, right, about this book, Nectar of Devotion. Then Srila Prabhupada mentions in another lecture, in Vrindavan, October 28, 1972. Actually, Srila Prabhupada did an entire series of lectures on the Nectar of Devotion in the early days, in 1972. So Prabhupada writes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compared bhakti to a great ocean. When he was speaking before Srila Rupa Goswami, he said that it is just like an ocean. So I'll take a drop of it and you taste it and you'll understand what is this ocean. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described a small portion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhakti devotional service. There is rasa, taste, and taste is Amrita, eternal. So the author of this book is pretty amazing. He's an extraordinary person to be in contact with. Generally, if we want to actually appreciate a person, it is more appropriate to fully understand and appreciate the person by understanding certain traits, certain activities, their qualities, their pastimes, so to speak, etc. So this author that we are so fortunately put in contact with by Srila Prabhupada or connected with is such an amazing person. So Srila Rupa Goswami was born as Amar. His name was Amar, and his brother was Santosh, right? So Amar and Santosh, they were born in a Saraswat Brahmin family. And they grew up spending their entire life not forgetting one moment to recite or remember Lord Krishna. So it's explained Santosh and Amar became so expert in reciting the glories of Lord Hari that they were renowned throughout India, right, as the best reciters of Harikatha. It's explained that Santosh used to read the Srimad Bhagavatam and or recite the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he used to weep torrents of tears of ecstasy simply by hearing and remembering the Srimad Bhagavatam. So very extraordinary two brothers. There were actually 5 brothers and 1 sister in their family, and their parents, they settled in Bengal. So in Bengal, they traveled a lot and did Harikatha in several places, and thus they became so popular that people all over the place used to wait for the opportunity to come and hear them recite this Harikatha. So what happened was there was a politician, and he knew that if you get a great man involved under your wing, you also get their followers. So he strategically aimed to get these 2 brothers, Amar and Santosh, under his wing because they had so many followers from their Harikatha. They were very popular. So he approached them and he said, "You two have to come and work for me." So he was Hussain Shah. And Hussain Shah, a Mohammedan, followed a culture that was totally opposite that of Santosh and Amar. And Santosh and Amar had no desire to go and work for him. They were not. They refused. But the Nawab Hussain Shah, he placed a certain um, uh, how you say when you make an arrangement, no, a certain condition, right? So he made a certain condition that when if Amar and Santosh don't come to work for him, he will vanquish the Brahmanas. He will harm all the Vaishnavas. He will destroy the Vaishnavas in bad ways. So he will cause physical harm to the devotees. So Amar and Santosh, not for their own gain or comforts, but for the protection of the greater Vaishnav community, did they accept work from this Nawab Hussain Shah. So while they were in this employment of the sinful Nawab Hussain Shah, they were like in the accountant and tax collecting department, etc., handling the finances for Nawab Hussain Shah. And they were so good at their work, but they never forgot Krishna. Even though they had to learn Persian, they had to learn Arabic, they grew their beards, and they adopted the dress of Mohammedans, and they were rejected by that same society that worshipped them, right? All the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, etc., they actually did not they kept away from these 2 personalities. So they were rejected by society because they were associating with the sinful Hussain Shah. They, however, kept writing letters to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they would write letters of separation, expressing their mood of understanding and of their separation of service to Krishna. So they were very great persons, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he acknowledged this. He read their letters, and he could decipher their feelings in their hearts. So what happened was that one day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was going to go to Vrindavan, so he stopped at Ramakeli, the village where these 2 brothers were working. And he met them. So they did not want, because they were so humble and so shy of their outward appearance as Mohammedans, due to their association with the Mohammedan, they went in the dens of night to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu's only reason for stopping at Ramakeli was to meet them. So for 10 nights, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met them, and first of all, not for 10 nights, he met them. He told them that soon you will join my party. And Srila Rupa Goswami at that time, he handed in his resignation, right? And when he handed in his resignation, he collected, it's explained, a whole boat full of money, right? He collected a whole boat of money, gold coins. And what he did with that gold coins, 50% he gave to the Vaishnav community for the temples, the Vaishnavs, important Vaishnavs to continue their worship, etc. 25% he gave to his relatives for their survival. And 25% he kept, right? So he kept it in a bank. And later on, Sanatan Goswami, Santosh, actually went, and Santosh sent someone, because Santosh, when he tried to retire, Hussein Shah was not in favor of that. So Santosh had to pay a bribe. And he took advantage of the wealth that his brother had accumulated and was in the bank. So that's how he made his escape. So these two, they joined Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, and it's explained that their third brother, Anupam, right? He became known as Anupam. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the name Anupam. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Amar the name Rupa, Santosh the name Sanatan, and they became initiated at the first meeting like that. Then it's explained that after they met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu told them that you must go to Vrindavan, right? After they joined him and they'd renounced their work, etc. So he told them, go to Vrindavan and then come back and see me in Puri. So they took a long time, and then Rupa and Anupam, they went to Vrindavan. And when they finished their short stay in Vrindavan and they were making their way back to Jagannath Puri to see Lord Chaitanya, Anupam left this world. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he, at that time, he started on that journey from Vrindavan to Puri. You must imagine, if you go take an overnight train from Vrindavan to Mayapur, to Calcutta, it's like 18 hours. And then you have to take another transport to go to Puri from there. So it's a long time. But can you imagine on foot, right? It's an awful long time. So during that time, you know what he did? He developed an art of writing drama, depicting Lord Krishna's pastimes in drama form. So he wrote Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. But when he was going, the first thing he wanted to do was to write a drama about Lord Krishna and the gopis and Srimati Radharani in Vrindavan. Then he would explain the pastime of Krishna leaving Vrindavan and going to Mathura. However, when he was traveling, he composed the poem, the drama, and he knew exactly what he was going to write. He knew, he had it all strategized. Then he came to a place called Satyabhama, I think Palya or something. And in that place, he had a dream of a young, beautiful personality who came in his dream and said, you must please write a separate drama for me. And that personality was none other than Satyabhama. So she's a queen from Dwarika. And even though Srila Rupa Goswami was going to write that part of the drama of how Srimati Radharani and the intimate gopis took their incarnations to fit into the Dwarika Leela and thereby serve Krishna, Satyabhama came and said, keep it separate. And when he conferred with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar, etc., he understood why he had to keep the both separate, right? Because the moods were different. So what happened was then he went to Jagannath Puri. And in Puri, he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu was dancing in front of Lord Jagannath. Mahaprabhu was dancing in front of Lord Jagannath. And then he became so ecstatic But in his ecstasy, he uttered a karmi song, right? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu uttered a verse of a karmi song. And it was about of a lover meeting the partner after a long separation, etc., in a beautiful place. So everybody who heard this was so shocked because they knew the Kami song. They probably listened to it on the radio. There's no radio that time, right? But they all knew this song, and they knew it was a love song, and it was a karmic written, karmic song. However, Srila Rupa Goswami was so expert that immediately when he heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu utter the song, he, on the spot, immediately a verse appeared in within his innermost core, and he uttered this verse. And it was a perfect composition of how Krishna and Radha are separated and eventually they meet again together. So he was such an amazing servitor of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he actually could know the mood. It's explained a disciple should know the mood and mission of his superior, right? So Srila Rupa Goswami immediately understood the bhav in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, and he composed that. So he's no ordinary person. So then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, go to Vrindavan, and I want you to excavate all the holy places of pilgrimage and re-establish the lost deities. So he went to Vrindavan, and he was sitting under this tree, and he was thinking, he was feeling a bit morose because just before him, Bhugarva Goswami and Lokanath Goswami were sent, and they went with the same mission, and they didn't find so much joy, right? They were not so successful. So it was a big task. So he was sitting, and as you can see, as depicted in this picture, he's quite forlorn. And a young boy came to him, and the young boy asked him, why are you so sad? And then Srila Rupa Goswami explained to him, I have this task that's given to me by none other than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the boy said, Baba, come with me. I want to show you something. Come immediately. So he took him to a place, a hill. And he said, under this hill is Govinda Dev. I'm sure about that. Govinda Dev must be under this hill because Govinda Dev was installed by Vrajanab, who is Krishna's grandson, long time ago. But at the Mughal invasion, many deities were buried for safety. So what happened was this little boy, he starts to explain to Srila Rupa Goswami that every day in this particular hill, a mysterious thing happens. One extraordinary cow comes and drops her milk at a certain time every day on the spot. And many tulsi plants were also growing on that hill. So Srila Rupa and the boy disappeared. No prizes for guessing who the boy was in disguise, right? So then Srila Rupa Goswami, with great endeavor, he dug up the place. He got the villagers to help him. They dug up, and sure enough, Govinda Dev appeared, right? And this deity of Govinda was then, as you can see, there's a deity, the original deity of Govinda Dev that was found under that hill. So this deity is still in existence, and if you go to Jaipur today, you can see him, right? So there you can see Radha Govinda, nicely situated in Jaipur now, because the king of Jaipur, he gave shelter during the Mughal invasion for deities of Vrindavan that needed to be hidden. So what happened was Srila Rupa Goswami, he constructed this magnificent temple. You're going to see in the next slide. Perfect architecture, renowned throughout India as one of the best masterpieces in architecture, right? He built this temple. and he used to compose literature. So when he established Govinda Dev, one day he was meditating on making a very special offering to Govinda Dev. So he was thinking, I would so like to make the most beautiful kheer for Govinda Dev. So, but I'm a Goswami, I don't have boga. So to make kheer, what you need? Best quality milk and sugar. So then, as he was thinking like this, he was thinking, I'll make this kheer and I'll offer it to Radha and Govinda. And then I will offer it to Sanatan and Jiva Goswami, right? And as he was thinking like this, a beautiful maiden came his way, holding in her hand the two ingredients he needed. So he collected the ingredients, thanked her, and he cooked it, as per plan. And he offered it, and when he offered it to Radha Govinda, he was feeling some satisfaction. And then then he took it and he offered it to Sanatan Goswami. And Sanatan Goswami was so transformed, was put into so much ecstasy just by tasting the sweet rice. So he said to him, where did you get the ingredients from? They said, I was just sitting under the Kalpavriksha tree and I was desiring, all trees in Vrindavan are Kalpavriksha trees, and this beautiful maidservant delivered it to me personally. So, of extraordinary beauty. So Sanatan Goswami said that was Srimati Radharani who brought you the ingredients. That's why when you taste it, you'll see for yourself, it takes you on another level just by consuming this. So many things can be said about Srila Rupa Goswami. And this is the part of the beautiful temple that he constructed with no nails, right? This temple is built with no nails. They take red sandstone and it is made in such a way that if they have to connect something, they just like this, they will file it down and it will connect like this. And that's how a corner will be made. So if you see all the Goswami, Radha Madan Mohan temple, Radha Damodar temple, Radha Govinda temple, they're all made of the same red sandstone and similar architecture. So a long time ago, we, for this very reason, in this pastime, we don't really go to the Taj Mahal as Vaishnavas, neither do we keep artifacts of it in our houses, etc. Because Aurangzeb, once sitting in the Taj Mahal in Agra, right near Vrindavan, he saw in the distance a light flickering. And he said, wow, to his minister, look at that beautiful flickering star. And his minister said, it's not a star, it's a lamp on that temple, in Radha Govinda temple in neighboring Vrindavan. Aurangzeb became so upset that there was a building in existence so magnificent that it was so standing taller than the Taj, that he immediately summoned the Mughal army to go to Vrindavan and break it. So what you see is the top broken, right? The top was actually, the dome, etc. It has been broken by Aurangzeb's Mughal invasion. And it was at that time that Shri Radha Govindaji was then transported to that place. The first thing Srila Rupa Goswami did when he went to Vrindavan was that he established the deity of Brinda Devi. You can sit there so I can see Avesh. And important to see Avesh's smile. So what happened was when he went to Vrindavan, the first thing he did was that he put in the deity of Vrinda Devi. And Vrinda Devi is the original Vrinda Devi of Vrindavan because she is actually the goddess of the forest of Vrindavan. So what happened was that deity is now moved and is in Kamyavan. She didn't want to leave during the Mughal attack. She stayed on the borders of Vrindavan in Kamyavan. So if you go to Kamyavan, you'll see this beautiful reddish-faced, round-faced deity, right? And I didn't get a chance to put the picture up for you because we have to go past the lifestyle of Rupa Goswami for this class. So he had established the deity. And Srila Rupa Goswami did many wonderful things. He composed many beautiful literatures, one of it being Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of which Srila Prabhupada has given us a summary study. So when he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag, for 10 days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat and spoke to him about the science of devotion. And this is all recorded in which book? Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Very good, right? And the teachings of Lord Chaitanya has got this entire thing, but then he spent another 10 months with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he then wrote this, Bhakti composed many other beautiful books and dramas, etc. You okay? Okay. You need an exit card. So what happened was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he spoke to him for 10 consecutive days. So a lot of knowledge. You need a perfect teacher and a perfect disciple. So this was the perfect example of perfect teacher, perfect disciple. And Srila Prabhupada, he writes in the preface of this book that we are all Rupanugas. We are following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, or we're known as followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. Now what happened was that Srila Rupa Goswami, his samadhi is in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. So the samadhi is a place where when you leave your body, the remnants of your physical remains is buried, right? So at the Radha Damodar temple, there's a person who was born at Radha Kund. So his name is Hridai. His name is Hridai. It's okay, keep him, he's listening. So Hridai Nanda Prabhu, he was born in Radha Kund and he lived next door to the Radha Damodar temple. And in 1964, 1965, he remembers at that time when he was staying next door to the Radha Damodar temple, that time it was not very developed, it was muddy, dusty, etc. Every night he would hear someone crying, profusely crying. So, but it was in the middle of the night, so he would be trying to take some rest. So, but one night, it was the full moon, Purnima. So, you know, everything's lit with moonlight, right? So he heard this crying again. And out of curiosity, he climbed onto the roof of his building and he looked into the courtyard of Radha Damodar. And what he saw really shocked him. He saw His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada with a broom in his hand, sweeping at the Samadhi place of Srila Rupa Goswami and profusely crying the same voice he'd been hearing night after night. And the Prabhupada was crying and he was saying, "Hey Rup, hey Sanatan, hey Gurudev, please grant me your mercy." Prabhupada was crying profusely and sincerely. And he said years later in an interview that devotees interviewed this person after that, he said years later when he heard that it was Swami Prabhupada, it was His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada that actually went and spread this Krishna consciousness throughout the world. He said, I was not shocked. I could see that he did extraordinary sadhana. I know all the Babas in Vrindavan, and he was the one person who stood out in his sadhana practice, right? And for him to achieve this, surely he had the mercy of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan. So in the picture that we saw in the beginning of where Srila Prabhupada is actually meeting Srila Rupa Goswami, there was a little boy in the Radha Damodar, one of the Pujari's sons. So he had a business of stealing the hundi box money because his hand was small. So he could fit into the hundi box and he'd take some money from the hundi box and he'd run and he'd buy sweets because, you know, there's so many sweet vendors everywhere in Vrindavan. So he would go and he'd buy sweets. So one day, Srila Prabhupada caught him. And Prabhupada asked him, what do you do with the money? So he said, they buy sweets. So Srila Prabhupada took him to the kitchen and made sandesh and rasgulla for him, right? He offered it and he fed this boy. So every night, this boy, he was so touched that here was an adult who caught him stealing. And what did he do? He gave him a higher taste, right? He never chastised him or anything, right? And you've seen Prabhupada's entire life, people blaspheme Prabhupada. Prabhupada was kind to them, right? When, people called him an incarnation of Krishna and it was a big aparad, Prabhupada, he punished them in the way of giving them mercy, right? He was so expert. He was so expert at not increasing the suffering of a person. Even the punishments that he gave was very relishable to the person, right? So this little boy, every night, being so touched by Srila Prabhupada's reciprocation with him, every night he would get his mother to give hot milk and some halava and puri, and he'd bring it and give it to Srila Prabhupada. So one night, Srila Prabhupada was coughing so much, he had so much mucus, so he told his boy, no, I can't eat this, you eat it for me today. So the boy went, and then Prabhupada's room, he closed. And if you go to Radha temple and you see the room door, Prabhupada, there's these Indian doors, they have enough space for the big rat to run underneath, so to speak, right? There's about this much space. You can see the light in the room, so, when the door is closed. So this boy, he later on told the devotees that he would see in the dead of night, when everything was switched off and the big temple gates were closed, no one comes and goes at that time, Srila Prabhupada would be conversing with somebody behind closed doors, and a bright, effulgent light, not like the globe from his room was giving that megawatt light, a very bright light would be shining from Prabhupada's room. So Prabhupada would be speaking to somebody, and this boy, he would take note of these things, right? And he worshipped Srila Prabhupada. He loved Srila Prabhupada because of Prabhupada's dealings with him. Prabhupada was such a pure devotee that he could invoke love in the heart of anyone that met him. So what happened was that one day, devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, and we're going to come to that quote just now. They asked Srila Prabhupada about meeting Srila Rupa Goswami. So here, let's chant this prayer to Srila Rupa Goswami, composed by Srila Narottam Das Thakur together, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So, you heard in the previous quotation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, from the ocean he has drunk, and he is just giving one drop to Srila Rupa Goswami. And that mega drop is absorbed by Srila Prabhupada, much like a mother bird takes the food, chews it, understands the level of digestion of the baby birds. What you call baby birds? Nestlings. Chicks, okay, chicks, right? So if you, the baby birds, right? And she understands the level of the baby bird's digestive strength. So she half chews the food, half digests it in the saliva of her mouth. And then what she does is, she spits it out into their mouths. Similarly, the Acharya is expert enough to take on the teachings of the great followers that he gets mercy from, to digest it, to understand the level of his followers for the next 10,000 years in the midst progression of Kali Yuga, and then dish it out in such a way that the same book will nourish and elevate, transform the consciousness of people for the next 10,000 years. So it's such personalities that we have a chance in these classes to associate with and learn from. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the preface of this book Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna and is engaged in the service of the Lord is accepted as being in a higher position than a person born in a family of a Brahmana. So this statement comes after the paragraph of the explanation of how Rupa and Sanatan Goswami were born in Saraswati Brahmana families and they were shunned by society, right? They were excommunicated, banned, or whatever you want to say. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood that this is not the way to deal with people, even if you're not pleased with them. The way to deal with them is to give them the mercy. So he gave. Its principle is universal. Anyone, he educated them in the science of Krishna consciousness. Why? Like, you know, when Srila Prabhupada met this devotee, Atma Tattva Prabhu, right? He had a mouth infection, and when he went to Srila Prabhupada to receive his beads during the initiation, he was like this close to Prabhupada's face because the room was so packed. And he had a mouth infection. He hadn't brushed his teeth for many days. So the stench was bad. So when he was saying the regulative principles, Prabhupada said, what happened in Hindi, you know? And why your mouth is smelling? So he said, mouth infection. And Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna. In other words, whatever the disease, chant Hare Krishna, it'll come right. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has this universal principle, right? That you don't have to be born in a Brahmana family, whatever your situation, you can rise, right? By this process. He is giving us this process by which everybody can rise. That is the original principle accepted by all Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's our philosophy, that every person should be given a chance. No person should be, the chance should never be retracted from any person. Why? Even if they're diseased, the solution is what? Krishna consciousness. You can't go tell them, first go to the doctor, first go sort your mind out, first go do that. No, the process is Krishna consciousness, the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The principle of Lord Chaitanya's movement in educating and elevating everyone to the exalted position of Goswami is taught in the Nectar of Devotion. I thought of this principle and how Srila Prabhupada embodied this principle of Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda so perfectly that even when Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked him about the person who was faulty, who was making an offense, who was stealing from Krishna, who was taking drugs actually. He was taking drugs. And he said to Prabhupada, I think you should reject this person. Prabhupada said, no, there's no limit to Lord Nityananda's mercy. So nobody that comes to the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Lord Nityananda should be rejected in any way, because why? You should try to make a devotee yourself before you push away somebody else. Prabhupada said it takes gallons of blood, right? It takes gallons of blood. It's like trying to give medicine to a horse. How many people it takes to give medicine to a horse? One has to hold one hind leg, another one has to hold the other hind leg, another one has to hold the other two front legs, two people there, then someone else has to hold the mouth, or two people have to hold the mouth open, and then you have to be expert enough to shoot the medicine in. So it's very, very difficult process to cultivate a person into a devotee, but Mahaprabhu has given the process. Then the preface explains that there is this thing called rasa. And rasa is what is like an impeding factor in our existence. Bhakti means devotional service. Then Prabhupada says, every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. What? You're going to get a big salary at the end of the month. Tolerate your situation, you're going to get the salary. You're going to get a bonus. You're going to get a promotion. You're going to get your ticket to X, Y, and Z. You're going to be able to buy this, buy that, etc., etc., etc. So there's an impetus for any action that people are performing. Every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. Every one of us within this world is perpetually engaged in some sort of service, and the impetus for such service is the pleasure we derive from it. Right? You have a comfortable home, you'll have a comfortable seat to sleep in, you'll have a comfortable bed, you'll have a comfortable whatever, right? Driven by affection for his wife and children, a family man works day and night. A philanthropist works, and Prabhupada explains, during the day he works for the boss. At night he comes home and he has to work for the family. He has to work, please his family members. Then a philanthropist works in the same way for the love of the greater family, a nationalist for the cause of his country and countrymen. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, the nationalist, is called rasa, or a kind of mellow whose taste is very sweet. So, yes, of course, we work hard, we tolerate situations, but at the end, when you get your salary and you can spend it on X, Y, and Z, and life becomes a little bit more comfortable, you forget all the austerities, right? That you have to deal with. Now, listen to this. Prabhupada explains, on the other hand, there's a thing called Bhakti ras. There's a impetus. It's a mellow different from the ordinary ras enjoyed by mundane workers. Mundane workers labor very hard day and night in order to relish a certain kind of rasa, which is understood as sense gratification. The relish or taste of mundane rasa does not long endure, and therefore mundane workers always apt to change their position of enjoyment. So Prabhupada goes on to explain later on in the preface that a child, when he's small, he learns to love his family members, and I remember when a devotee was telling me this, and of course I didn't know it was coming from Nectar of Devotion in the very early days of my association with devotees. The devotee was saying, when a child is small, you give him a toy, he gets some love and affection out of this toy. Then he grows out of it. No, he doesn't want the toy as soon as he's a little older. So then you may get him a pet. They try to enjoy the pet. Lo and behold, the pet dies sooner or later, and that enjoyment is severed. Then, it grows into a teenage. Then he has a loving relationship with a member of the opposite sex, perhaps. And then what happens? That is severed, because material happiness is explained later on in this as temporary in a very nice way, and we're going to come to that. A businessman is not satisfied by working the whole week, therefore wanting the change of the weekend, he goes to a place where he tries to forget his business activities. Then after the weekend is spent in forgetfulness, he again changes his position and resumes his actual business activities. And of course, nowadays, you find people, they will say on Facebook, Monday, they put some, sad thing for it being Monday. And, Monday's going to come again in 7 days' time. Get a hold of it, man. And then when it's Friday, there's some short-lived happiness that, yay, it's Friday. But Friday also has its end, right? That's why the Bhagavad Gita says, Matra sparsas takuntayas titoshna sukha dukkada agama paina nityas tam stitikshvasvat bharata. What does that mean? That happiness and distress is like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and a sober person is never bewildered by this. So in winter, you touch the water, it is the cause of suffering. In summer, wow, the same water is the source of your enjoyment. You'll dive in. So it's just relative happiness, right? Everything's relative. The businessman is working hard, and then what he does, okay, he goes, just say to Maldives. How you say the word Maldives, right? So he goes there, and the Bhagavatam explains it is chapala sukha, right? It is the taste, it does not endure. It is flickering happiness, right? You get a start and a finish. Mundane happiness, what happens? Mundane happiness is the source of its own distress. Do you understand that statement? Anything that brings you mundane happiness is a source of its own sadness. Why? Because if it has a beginning, it has an end. It has a start, it must finish, right? You're born. When you're born, there's expiry date stamped. You're going to expire at a certain date, right? Everything has a shelf life in this material world. It's expiring, right? It has an expiry date. Similarly, like, you see the sunshine and you say, Wow, it's such a beautiful thing to rise early and watch the sun shine. Srila Prabhupada, that's warm, that's mine, sorry. And so what happens is when you see the sunshine, you think, oh, wow, it is so beautiful and it was worth waking up, etc. Srila Prabhupada says you attach to one ray of sunshine in this world, you'll take birth again. Right? The Bhagavatam explains, Ayur Harati Vaipumsam, that when you look at the sun rising, what announcement it is making? It is saying you're closer to one more day of death. You're closer to death by one day, right? So every time you see the sun rising, and that was the verse that prompted me to join the temple full time. This verse, Ayur Harati Vaipumsam. When I heard it, every time I'd look at the sunrise on my way to work, I would think, oh no, a whole day is going to be wasted maintaining my body. What am I doing for my soul? And it was an impelling force in me at that time. So Bhoga Tyaga, Bhoga and Tyaga, position alternating sense enjoyment with renunciation. Enjoyment and renunciation. The businessman is going on holiday, he has to renounce and get back to work on Monday. And it could be a more hectic week than last week before the holiday. So it never ends. That's the story of endurance of happiness in the material world. Everything, every relationship started. Our children, our parents, our spouses, our pets, our apparatus, technological things that give us pleasure. Everything has a beginning and an end, right? Like I remember in the Ramayana, when I used to watch the television series of the Ramayana in the old days. So when I lived at the temple, my father-in-law had videotapes of this. So when I used to be contaminated for 3 days, the temple had a TV and a video machine, and I would he would borrow the tapes for me, and I would watch them. And there's a time when Bharat comes back from Kaikeyi's father's village and he finds Dasarath dead, right? And at that time, he has to do the cremation and the final rites for Dasarath Maharaj. And a song plays and they give you the subtitles. And the meaning of it was for every time you jumped on your father's lap and got joy, this is the suffering you have to endure, that you have to set fire to his body. So for every bit of happiness, there is suffering. Material happiness breeds that only, right? It will always be that. It's not a pessimistic view, it's a realistic view. So at death, everything is finished, Srila Prabhupada writes, and one has to begin a new chapter of life in a new situation, perhaps higher or lower than the last one. And he uses the word Daiva Netram, right? He says that this is all authorized by Daiva, by higher beings. Your existence in 8,400,000 species, right? This is according to your activities in this lifetime. Like Prabhu was saying the other day in one of the classes, if you plant a mango seed on Saturday morning, if you plant a mango seed and you expect an orange to bear, it is foolish. It behooves an intelligent person to understand if you sow a mango seed, you hopefully would get a mango tree bearing mango fruit. So the activities you perform here now in this lifetime, in this human form of birth, which is so fortunate, is the activities that will sow your suit that you will get in your next existence, material or spiritual, eternal or temporary, made of blood, pus, urine, or stool, or something transcendental. The power of that is in your hands only. Not I, not any other person can change that, right? Prabhupada explains that you are flying your own aeroplane. So then Srila Prabhupada goes on to write Bhakti Ras. However, the mellow relished in transcendental loving service of the Lord does not finish with the end of life. It continues perpetually and is therefore called Amrita, that which does not die but exists eternally. So there's a spark inside of us. And when that spark is fanned, it needs to flourish eternally. It cannot be contained in a material atmosphere because its thirst can never be quenched. So there'll always be a thirst. This is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Bhagavad Gita says that a little advancement in bhakti rasa can save the devotee from the greatest danger, that of missing the opportunity of human life. The rasas derived from our feelings in social life, in family life, or in the greater family of altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, socialism, communism, etc., do not guarantee that one's next life will be as a human being. We prepare our next life by our actual activities in the present life. The living entity is offered a particular type of body as a result of his action in the present body. So we can choose to be part of an eternal existence of bliss, eternality, and knowledge, or we can come and struggle again in as we've been doing for so many lifetimes in this world. Can you read loud and clearly for me, Avesh?
Senses can become uncontaminated, constantly in touch with Bhakti rasa. When the purified senses are employed in the service of the Lord, one becomes situated in Bhakti rasa. And any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, this transcendental Bhakti rasa stage of life can be relished perpetually. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all varieties of rasa or melas turn into eternity. In the beginning, one is trained according to the principles of the regulations under the guidance of Acharya or spiritual master, and gradually, when one is alleviated, devotional service becomes automatic and spontaneous eagerness to serve Krishna. There are 12 kinds of rasas and will be explained in this book. And by renovating our relationship with Krishna in 5 primary rasas, we can live eternally in full knowledge.
Thank you. So this is a picture that is painted that under the guidance of an acharya, if we follow this process of regulated devotional service, like Prabhupada has given us, right, in his roadmap to go back home, back to Godhead, then we can revive. Prabhupada uses the word renovating our relationship, right? Rebuilding, right? We have the foundation. Now we can rebuild. He's giving us all of the tools to change our mindset, to alter our state of being, to fix ourselves on a plane of eternality. Prabhupada is giving that all to us on a silver platter, right? He studied all the books of the Acharyas, assimilated, and is now giving us as much as we can digest, as much as we need to then use that as a springboard to spring into the Sudasattva platform, re-establishing our relationship with Krishna in any one of the 5 rasas. So there are many important points in this preface, and I just listed a few. And the Nectar of Devotion teaches a principle of Mahaprabhu's movement, which is elevating everyone to the exalted position of Goswami through devotional service. So we went through that, right? That whatever your state of being is, whatever your faults are, if you practice devotional service, one is, can we point a finger or condemn a person who's practicing chanting Hare Krishna, engaging in propagating Krishna consciousness in any way? No. Just say you see the fault, and it is a major fault, right? That person, if he wakes up tomorrow morning after you chastise him or her tonight, right? He wakes up tomorrow morning and chants his best rounds, even better than all of us put together. Who can judge that? Only Krishna. And that person is not the same person we found fault with yesterday, because a change has happened. So that's the science of devotional service, right? Your spouse, whatever, your child, whoever, any dependent in your service area, etc. If they perform a mistake, and if they continuously chanting Hare Krishna, any service they do, like when we were doing the nectar of instruction, perhaps, or I gave a pastime of this one person. I remember Danudar Prabhu asked me for the reference, and I quoted the reference and gave it to him the next day on the same WhatsApp group. If any one of you need it, I'll give it to you. It's explained, I think it's in the Padma Purana, how a thief entered a temple in the midst of night, and he was stealing. And the devotees who were sleeping there woke up, and they disturbed him, so he ran away. It was a rainy night. Everything was very muddy. And that fellow, when he was running in the forest, he got eaten by a lion perhaps or something, but he died. And he actually got a four-armed form. So the question was, he was a thief. Just last night, he came to steal in the temple. What happened? How he got such good credits? So it was explained that Krishna accepted his service, that he picked up mud with his foot, and the tile of the temple room floor was cracked. And by him walking on that crack with the mud of his feet, he did the service of mending the floor of the Lord. That's how Krishna saw it. So this is the movement of Lord Nityananda. The way he sees something, just say he sees X, Y, and Z is coming to me after 8,400,000 births times blah, 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 right? So many times. At last, I've been waiting. Here's my dear devotees coming. And unfortunately, we cannot accommodate such a person. That is whose shortcoming? It's our shortcoming, right? It's our not aligning with Lord Nityananda. So Mahaprabhu's movement is like that, elevating everyone to an exalted position of Goswami. Can you imagine? What a Goswami, what a position, a Goswami. Nowadays, if you have the certain surname, right, in certain circles, then they think, okay, you're good birth, you're a good guy, right? But imagine, this thing is elevating you beyond all of that to the Goswami level. A man engages in various services of humanity because he derives some pleasure rasa from such services. However, it is all a material affair. It does not endure and terminates entirely at death. Therefore, man remains dissatisfied. Right? So that's another point. Everything in the material world gives us dissatisfaction. Anything on the material platform, dissatisfaction. Why? With the beginning comes an end. Never was a time when I did not exist. No, all these kings, Arjuna. No, in future shall any one of us cease to be. What's the Sanskrit? The pleasure, rasa, derived from serving our true objection of affection, God, is perpetual, blissful, and fully satisfying. This rasa is eternal. Right? This bhakti rasa is eternal. Why? Because it links us to that which we have severed our connection with. It's like replugging into the power source, right? The bhakti rasa stage of life is when we engaged in the Lord's service with purified senses, freed from the identification with mundane designations. The loving tendency which is within everyone remains unfulfilled when reposed in temporary material objects, to only be fulfilled when correctly placed in Krishna. And Prabhupada gives the example of a tree, right? He says no matter how big the tree is, if you pour the water on the root, it will absorb and nourish the big tree, right? So this is the system. We reconnect to the root source. By loving Krishna, we will automatically love everyone, just as by water the root of a tree, the entire tree is nourished. So if we try any philanthropy, right, it is not going to satisfy us as Krishna consciousness can. Why? Prabhupada explains that Krishna consciousness is the highest welfare work for humanity, right? So if you try to do good to anybody, it's not going to help you. But if you try to do good in relationship to Krishna, right, you will actually make that person happier and yourself. Nectar of Devotion is specifically presented for persons engaged in Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada said this book should be studied scrutinizingly by the members of the Hare Krishna movement at least 7 to 9 times, right? He explains. He said this is the law book, right? So we've got to study this book in its scrutinizingly. So Prabhupada reveals his purpose in writing the Nectar of Devotion in this preface. Read loudly, Vivek.
Reasons revealing Prabhupada's purpose in writing the Nectar of Devotion. The eternal engagement in Bhakti rasa can be understood by a serious student on studying the Nectar of Devotion. 12 kinds of rasas, as will be explained in this book. And by renovating our relationship with Krishna, in 5 primary rasas can be rasas we can live eternally in full knowledge and bliss.
Okay. Bhavisha?
That missing point is Krishna, and the Nectar of Devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful.
And then our love can be fully satisfied only when it is reposed in Krishna. This theme is the sum and substance of the Nectar of Devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in 5 different relationships, right? The Nectar of Devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna, because he's the root cause of everything. You can try to be the best wife, the best husband, the best father, the best mother, the best daughter, the best son. You may just fail, right? That's the nature of this material world. The best thing is try to become the best servant of Krishna and see the person you're developing a relationship with as a servant of Krishna. You may have some success that way. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations. So Prabhupada said the United Nations, what has happened? You can see the division by how many flags they have, right? Instead of uniting and making one nation, they have created division. That's why there's more and more flags, right? The Nectar of Devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. I'm appealing herewith to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the Nectar of Devotion, and I'm sure that the fire of material existence burning within their hearts will be immediately extinguished. So Prabhupada at this time had reached America, a country with all material comforts and so progressive, but the citizens were not happy. There was the void, the pinprick in society, and the only thing that could fix it, Prabhupada is explaining, is that it could extinguish that fire of material existence is Krishna consciousness. So the Nectar of Devotion will give us practical hints on how we can live in this material world perfectly engaged in devotional service and thus fulfill all our desires in this life and the next. You're not only preparing for this life, you're preparing beyond this life. What you do in this life, if you do it properly, you can actually prepare for your future. The Nectar of Devotion is not presented to condemn any way of materialistic life. But the attempt is to give information to religionists, philosophers, and people in general how to love Krishna. Prabhupada, in his dedication, he says he gives credit to, and he was listing the people he gives credit to, and one of the persons he mentions was Sriman Jayananda Prabhu. Jayananda Prabhu had leukemia, and he took all the money and he gave it to Srila Prabhupada to print his books, right? And he got a job as a taxi driver and a cab driver, they used to call it in America, and he would give his whole paycheck to Srila Prabhupada, right? Imagine giving your whole paycheck in this day and age to Srila Prabhupada. That takes a unique personality. And Prabhupada had that ability that he, and not by demanding, but just by his own humble and pure demeanor, would attract souls who could do things like this, right? And the nectar of devotion is specifically presented for persons who are now engaged in Krishna consciousness movement. So Prabhupada gave this book especially for the inner circle, the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement. However, they still sold it on the streets in the early days, right? Prabhupada still had them go out and sell it on the streets. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada didn't see by material vision. He knew that from his last birth, so-and-so was a devotee, right? And this book will ignite where he left off in his last life. So Prabhupada's vision was like that. The principle of Lord Chaitanya's movement in educating and elevating everyone to the exalted post of Goswami is taught in the Nectar of Devotion. So it's no secret. It is going to be given to you from A to Z. How to perfect human existence. It is only for our guidance that Srila Rupa Goswami prepared his book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is now presented in the form of Nectar of Devotion. Person engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement may take advantage of this great literature and be very solidly situated in Krishna consciousness. If you want a solid foundation, the other day I was just thinking, we can never claim to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada if we don't read his books daily. Because it's like going to work and not knowing what your boss wants out of you. Can you imagine that? It's like shooting blank shots in your whole life, just like doing what you want to anyway, anyhow, no targets, It's like, how can you be? We can't call ourselves followers of Srila Prabhupada if daily we don't absorb ourselves in doing as he wanted and studying these books. And the thing about Nectar of Devotion, or any one of Prabhupada's books, you study it, and then you study it at another level, you'll find a deeper meaning, and especially this Nectar of Devotion. My spiritual master was telling me one time, he said the Nectar of Devotion, at every level of your Krishna consciousness, as you read it, you get a different meaning. It is so deep, it is so rasic, it is so everything everyone is trying to look for in every other place. It's all there, given to us, right? We just have to cleanse the eyes, add the salve of love, and then you can be able to see. Otherwise, the clouds, they block, right? It is for our own guidance that Srila Rupa Goswami prepared this book. For solid foundation, that's what we have to do. And in conclusion, Prabhupada says, we have failed to create peace and harmony in the human society, but such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand it with a cool head. The Nectar of Devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What's the opposite of cool head? What's a hot-headed? Give me one description of being hot-headed. Anger. Passion. Irrational. Hot-headed, right? So you get an idea of what hot-headed means, right? But now you have to understand this with a cool head. Means you have to come to the platform of not just sattva, but sudasattva, right? Then it's a proper springboard. So if we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. I'm appealing herewith to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the Nectar of Devotion. And I'm sure that the fire of material existence burning in their hearts will be immediately extinguished. Right? So that concludes Srila Prabhupada's preface. How much is put into just the preface? right? How much that we were deprived of in reading volumes and volumes of anything else, right? Prabhupada is able to succinctly package it and give it to us here. That's your solution for life. You want a solution? The idea of, you know what the definition of stupidity is? The definition of stupidity is like this. You do the same thing you did yesterday, today, and you expect tomorrow to be different. Right? There has to be some change. There has to be some change, right? There has to be a transformation of heart. So when we hear like just the preface and all the advice that Srila Prabhupada is giving us just in the preface, and if we're able to just cling onto one thing, right? That is a success of our Friday evening, right? And if you're hearing this class on another day of the week, that is a success of our 1.5 hour of class, right? Are there any questions, comments, or corrections thus far? Clarifications from anyone live first? Any thoughts? Anything online? Everyone's okay? Okay, thus concludes today's class on the Nectar of Devotion preface. And please take this seriously. Take one of these things. And even if you're not writing the exam, or you're not the type of person who's going to answer questions or wants to be part of the quiz, just hang in there, listen to it, be present. And drops, like how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took that one drop and he splashed it on Srila Rupa Goswami from the ocean. If tiny droplets come our way, much success can be achieved as opposed to us spending our time doing any other thing in life, right? So that can be our success in life. And don't forget, tomorrow is Sri Ram Navami. It is that day which you fast and hear and remember Sri Ram and the beautiful lessons of Ramayana. And then the following day is the 40th anniversary of our beloved lordships, the Sri Sri Nitai Gaurahari at ISKCON Indonesia. So you can go to their Facebook pages, check the programs out, and remain connected and participate in that. Lots of nice association, etc. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhakti Rasam Rita Sindhu Ki Jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Security. So if anybody wanted a copy, please take your copy from the desk.
If you need to take a copy for somebody, you have to take.